Hey, Scarefest fans. This week it took me a few days to get through this one, and I'm going to try to keep it at 4 minutes, but it's lengthy because I finally watched The Haunting of Bly Manor. If you're like me, you love The Haunting of Hill House, which is based on The Haunting by Shirley Jackson. This is based on the work of Henry James loosely. And here's kind of the storyline according to IMDb. A young governess is hired by a man who's a rich guy, and we know his brother and his sister in law are dead. He somehow inherited the house, this thing called Bly Manor, and his niece and nephew live there. And he hires this lady, an American lady, who's running for some demons of her own, to look over them at their family country estate out in the England, wherever it is. Soon after arriving, though, she starts to see things that aren't quite right. And again begins to experience strange things. Is it any good? Yeah, it's wonderful. It's 9 episodes. It's a lot of dedication. It's almost 9 hours. Is it The Haunting of Hill House? No, that's the problem I think a lot of people are complaining about. So this is based on the writings of Henry James. The thing is it's a ghost story. It's not necessarily a horror film. And do you guys know what I mean? What the difference is? One of the characters in the last episode says at the end, seems more like a love story than a ghost story. And one of the other characters says, well, it's both. And it is. This is both. It's 9 hour love story and it's a ghost story. It's a story that has ghosts in it. It's not necessarily horror, and I hope you guys understand what I'm talking about. You're not going to get scared. There's a couple of jump scares and there may be some uneasy feelings, but there's a ton of ghosts, but it's just a ghost story. The story unravels if you watch The Haunting of Hill House, similar to that. You'll have an episode, then there'll be another episode that may be a flashback to 20 years before that episode, and we find out this other piece of information, and we start to discover the characters as we go. I liked most of it. There's a few inconsistencies that drove me crazy, specifically when it comes to the ghosts and what the ghosts can do. You'll see a ghost touch something, and then you'll see a ghost just can kind of go through it because they can't touch anything. It's a little inconsistent. Kind of pulled me out of it every once in a while. And they don't quite explain all that. And then the 8th episode basically gives you the history of it right before the final episode, which takes about 15 minutes. So that's a little bit of a letdown. If you like The Haunting of Hill House, I highly recommend this. If you like ghost stories, if you've ever seen, so he wrote the Turning of the Screw, which was turned into a masterpiece of a film called, Turn of the Screw, which was turned into a masterpiece of a film called The Innocents. Check it out if you ever get a chance. This is an old movie, but it's fantastic. Innocents. You get a lot of the characters you would from his short stories, from the novella, The Turn of the Screw, and very much influenced by Henry James. It reminds me of something Del Toro would have done, maybe as a 2 hour film, or would have worked on. It doesn't quite have the beautiful set designs that you quite would have expect for Del Toro, but it's very much in that vein. If you liked Crimson Peak, then I highly recommend this. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it's not The Haunting of Hill House. And one reviewer talks about, it's something different, so you got to let that go. They're right. However, it's still not as good as The Haunting of Hill House. A lot of the same actors are in it. Carla Gugino, one of my crushes, is the narrator. She was in many of them. And all this comes from a guy named Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan created both shows. He directed, though, every episode of The Haunting of Hill House. He only directed the first episode of this one, and that may be what it is. I really am a fan of Mike Flanagan. If you watch Dr. Sleep, another movie I highly recommend called Hush, if you ever get a chance to watch his Hush, it's on Netflix. Or Gerald's Game, another Carla Gugino film. Check those out. Mike Flanagan, talented guy. I've reviewed Dr. Sleep on here before, but it's a really good show. Check out The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. It's a little bit of a dedicated run, but you got the time. It's not like you're going anywhere. Definitely not eating out. Too soon? Okay. Anyways, Joe Lewis, wear your mask, stay safe, and I'll see you later. Bye, Scarefest.